I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, we're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, North Alabama, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and worldwide, you can find us on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Again, thank you so much for watching. Now, you could be doing anything else, but you're watching us, and we definitely appreciate that. I have talk show host of another talk show, just started doing that recently, and his name is A.P. Steadham. He is also a sports enthusiast, and this is my go-to guy. I ask AP about stuff all the time. Hey, AP, how are you doing?
Hey, Donna, how are you? So glad to be on the show.
I'm doing pretty good. This is a Monday, and we're always looking forward to having you on. Should we call it Manic Monday Football? What do you want? What do you call it?
Probably should be, right? Up and down, right? Up and down for some people.
Absolutely, but it's exciting. I mean, I think we're just, we go through the rest of the year, and, football we miss. And then when spring training comes and summertime gets here, we're still watching baseball and all that kind of good stuff. But man, football, that's a must.
Oh, yeah, it's exciting, Donna. All the teams are in training camp right now. And Donna, around the SEC particularly, there's some quarterback battles, and I think that's the story this year for the SEC. And I'm not sure that there are exceptional quarterbacks that will emerge as the starters, but there is competition. Mm-hmm. So that has to be, concluded before you can name a starter. Some of these coaches, Donna, they always try to hold back who they'll start or the name, and sometimes they never even tell you before the first game. The person just trots out from the sideline, and even the fans don't know exactly. And here's their starter coming right onto the field that moment, that day of the opening game.
I can do that, but I get it, because that way whoever you're playing is not going to be ready. They're not going to know who and what their strategy usually is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that coaches, that's the reason they just leave it a big question mark for the opponent, who will be the starting quarterback. Of course, Donna, they played a little football themselves, so they understand we have to prepare for a couple. So it's not a real big surprise, but I don't know, it's a little game that they play with the opposing coach.
Yeah, it's always fun to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. So now you had a pretty busy week last week after our last segment.
We did. We started our new show, AP and Kelly As We See It, and it's about the SEC football. And of course, we're going to keep an eye on the national scene, but that's the title of the show, AP and Kelly As We See It. Capital S, capital E, capital C is right in the title, SEC. So we're just excited. We had a guest on. Our first guest was the president and CEO of the National Football Foundation / College Football Hall of Fame, Steve Hatchell. And Donna, they oversee all of, I think it's 774 colleges and universities, Donna, playing football.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Most people don't realize that.
No,
it's not just, there's about 130, I think, at the FBS level, the Division I level, as they call it, FBS or Division I. But there's 774 playing college football across the country, all types of levels. So I didn't know the number was that big myself.
I didn't know. So what do they oversee? Because that sounds like that's quite an accomplishment.
Right. Yeah. So what he does, they just documenting that they play. They are involved in the College Football Hall of Fame, the voting process, and the induction. And down at the induction this year will be in Las Vegas for the second time. Mm-hmm. This is an event, Donna, that they would normally have at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. Mm-hmm. But they moved it to Las Vegas last year. This year it's going to be December 6th on a Tuesday, a black tie affair. Last year there was 2,000 people at the event, Donna. Normally probably in New York there's probably 1,000 or so. But in Las Vegas they have bigger venues. So 2,000 people. It's all the coaches. It's everybody's dressed up, black tie, and the women are wearing the gowns and the dresses, and so it's a lot of fun. It's the center of college football on that evening, the first Tuesday of the month in December. So it's fun. They give out the Campbell Award. It's like the Heisman Trophy for academics in football, and they have the induction of the class of 2022. There's three people from the SEC that will be inducted this year, Donna. Sylvester Croom was a center. He was the captain at Alabama, and he was the first African American coach in the SEC at Mississippi State. He'll be inducted. Champ Bailey was a terrific defensive back, All-American from Georgia, and then Gary Pinkel was the head coach of Missouri. So three SEC inductees for the class of 22: Sylvester Croom, Champ Bailey, and Gary Pinkel. But it's a fabulous event. I know many people like to go to Las Vegas. If you want to attend a terrific event, it's the National Football Foundation. It's the 64th annual banquet. This is the 75th anniversary, Donna. Started in 1947. It was started by General MacArthur, Donna.
Oh, really?
General MacArthur, 1940. He was the manager of the Army football team, actually, General MacArthur. And
that
then,
would make sense.
Yeah, Red Blake was the coach of Army, and then Grantland Rice. We've always heard his words used when they described the Notre Dame Four Horsemen and some other phrases that are legendary in the annals of sports. So those three gentlemen were the ones who were the forces to get this event moving in the organization. So yes, Steve Hatchell, he's known by everybody from coast to coast, of course, and it's a great organization. And so he was our guest on our first show.
Wow. Most of the questions that came in when you were on the show last week had to do with the college football players being paid. And so there was that seemed to be the big discussion. Probably most of the questions, right, about 90% were about that. Is there any more light you can shed in on that?
Well, I would just say that I know some are not happy, but this is the change we must accept. It's not going away. It's going to be part of the fabric of college football now. It's really probably been coming for at least the last 50 years anyway, Don. And then all these salaries escalated with the coaches when you're paying somebody $10, $11 million, and then you're saying we don't have any money. Those two variables, they don't work in an equation in the mind of a college student athlete. So the other thing that people are upset about or just have a concern about is they're worried about if their quarterback, let's say, receives quite a bit of the money and the offensive lineman or defensive lineman doesn't get the money. Well, this is the state of college football. This is what the athletes wanted to be paid. So you want to be in the world of the real world. This is how it operates. Mm-hmm. You don't always get the same money as the person next to you. Mm-hmm. So this is something that if you want to be mature, you have to accept, or you have to come up with some type of personality or brand where companies are going to pay you just as much as the quarterback or near that amount. Now, some schools, Donna, what they're trying to do is when everybody arrives on campus, they're giving them a certain amount of money through an NIL. They're trying to work it out where everyone gets something. So when you arrive on campus, let's say 85 scholarship players, and I don't know if there's any room for the walk-on players as well, but this is the real world now, Donna. You don't get paid the same as the person next to you. The quarterback normally is going to get the most money. That's in professional football, and that's how it will be in college football. Unless you have something unique about your personality that drives a business to pay you money.
Well, you just answered several of the questions. One of those is whether it's ability or personality. There were actually several, because you're going to have somebody, maybe they don't have, I mean, they've got good ability or they wouldn't be on the team, but someone else may outshow them as far as ability, but boy, they got that real good personality.
Right.
He really wants to, they want to endorse them.
Oh, yeah. And Donna, with the advent of all this technology, you could promote yourself on these various social media platforms. So you don't have to sit back. I mean, you could be active and hire somebody with a marketing plan. I'll give you an example, Donna. I was reading a story last week in a newspaper, and it spoke about two women college basketball players. I follow women's basketball to some degree. I didn't know about them. they're making over $1 million. Okay, they don't play for Alabama or Ohio State or USC or Texas or Penn State or Michigan. Two women basketball players, not on a big program, but they have the social media following. They're making over $1 million. So Donna, it can be done. So don't sit there and complain. Come up with a plan and pursue it.
Well, I didn't have anybody complaining about it. They were all saying, well, it's about time. And unless now, if you're going to complain about it, go on ahead and send me a message. I'd like to hear from you. Absolutely. You can send a text to Donna to 256-659-4319. I'll be glad to take that question. But everybody who responded, said, well, sure, won't be paid like a pro, but who knows? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, it just takes one. I mean, there have been reports, for instance, the Tennessee incoming freshman quarterback, I guess for next year, and the incoming quarterback next year from Miami, they signed an NIL deal, supposedly $8 and $9 million, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good money.
Yeah.
Pro ball or college.
Uh-huh.
That's a fair amount of money. So it can be done if you have the right representation and you're moving to the right school.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot. Sometimes people say, well, luck has a lot to do with it, but not necessarily, because if you get out there and you promote yourself with a promoter, I think that just doubles your abilities.
Yeah, in this day and age, you can hire people to promote your brand and improve your social media numbers, and that's what these companies. That's the first thing that they evaluate usually, Don.
I think so too. There was a GoFundMe page. A guy, all he did was ask for help on making potato salad. Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about it. No.
Oh my goodness. I think it was about 4 years ago. And that's all he did. He just GoFundMe. I just want to know how to make potato salad. And I forgot how much money he brought in. But see, he had a really good personality. He was really bubbly like. And I mean, people just liked it, so they just sent money anyway, and he didn't even ask for any money. He just asked for like $30 or something, and wound up bringing, I forgot how many hundreds of $1,000s in.
Right? Yeah, there's an avalanche of support that can happen with some of these videos on social media. So, but anyhow, to just get back to some football, they're starting the training camps. Alabama has a tight end, Cameron Latou. He's out for a couple of weeks with an injury. They're working on their offensive line. Auburn's the same thing. They're trying to get that offensive line together, and they have that quarterback battle. TJ Finley had a little incident that came to light last week. I don't think it's going to hold them back from being the starter. I think, just a little reprimand. I don't think it's a serious matter per se, but so they have the three quarterbacks, as we mentioned. Robbie Ashford, that transferred from Oregon. I think he's going to play in certain packages because he's really fast and elusive in the pocket, and he's a former baseball player. He can throw from many angles. And you have Zach Calzada from Texas A&M. So that's a three-way battle, but I think it's really two. And then Robbie Ashford is going to play in certain situations. Tennessee, they have a terrific quarterback, Hendon Hooker. He had a tremendous year last year, down to 31 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's some of the best numbers in the country. He had the highest quarterback rating ever at the University of Tennessee. That speaks volumes when some of your alumni includes Peyton Manning. So Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, two of them have their quarterback situations figured out at this point. Auburn will determine somebody. And I think possibly all three of those quarterbacks at Auburn will get a chance to contribute if they're going to win this season. I really do.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it sounds like a big number of quarterbacks, though. Is that a new trend?
Yeah, Donna, that is the trend because people are transferring for various opportunities. You have a transfer at LSU from Arizona State. You have a transfer at Missouri from Southern Miss. You have Ole Miss has the transfer from University of Southern California. You have a transfer at Texas A&M from LSU. So, Donna, that's almost half a dozen schools that I mentioned. You have a transfer at South Carolina. I think that is a half a dozen right there in the SEC. Yes, that is a trend, especially at the quarterback position and every position on the field, Donna, with this transfer rule. So that changes the roster management for the coach, but it's something different. And you could have these transfers can really improve your team from year to year.
Let me ask you another question. This is kind of off the cuff a little bit, but and this is back to the college players actually making an income. So what if someone is making a pretty decent income, but then someone from the pros goes, you know what? I'd like to have that guy right there on our team now. Would they be able to take them out of college into pro like that? Is that
No,
going to
no,
open up another can of worms?
yeah, they can't do that down because the NFL, excuse me, has certain rules about their draft. And that's usually held in April. Then if they have some type of special draft, that would be after the one in April, I think. Normally, I've seen that happen many years ago when somebody came out from college and they wanted to put themselves on the market. So it's not something you could do, let's say, like in November. I'm leaving Oklahoma to become a part of the New York Giants or something like that. No, it's they have the rules, and they had the four, they had the vision to look at that as well. So
Uh-huh.
that, those parameters are in place.
Yeah, but rules change. I mean, because really, as new things happen, COVID helped make that happen. So as new things happen,
Right.
rules do definitely change. So that could be something they'll look at just a little bit later. Let's talk a little bit about Tennessee because we had a lot of response after your show last week about Tennessee, and it looks like they're kind of on an upward spiral, if you can say that.
Yeah, I think so. You got Cedric Tillman, good receiver, big receiver, 6'2", 6'3". And then, like I said, Brew McCoy transferred in from the University of Southern California, another big receiver, and they have some other people. So I think I'm really excited because their quarterback last year, like I said, 31 touchdowns. He was very productive, and now you're getting some better receivers to go along with Cedric Tillman. Uh, my only thought, and I always keep bringing this up, is the defense. And they have a freshman linebacker, Caleb, I forgot his last name, but he's showing some promise. But they have to get better on that side of the football. But Tennessee has a roster that can upset some teams. They can surprise you because we know that Josh Heupel, good offensive coach, and if his quarterback gets off to a fast start early, that gives them confidence, especially on the road. Let's look at their schedule, Donna, right quick, just to get an idea. Johnny, a key game for them, they open up with Ball State, but that Pittsburgh game on the road. Now, Pittsburgh, I think, returned 17 starters, Donna. They lost that on their Blitnikoff Award receiver transferred to the University of Southern California, and their quarterback, Kenny Pickett, went on to the pros. But they're playing at home, the second game, 17 starters. So if Tennessee can just sneak by Pittsburgh, they could have a really good season. Then they come back home to Akron. They host Florida, who has a new coach, Billy Napier. They host Florida on that fourth Saturday in Knoxville. Then they have a bye. Then they have to go down to LSU. LSU has a new coach. So maybe they're not a complete product at that point because they're trying to learn the new system as well. Then they'll play Alabama in Knoxville. That'll be a tough game, as always, because they haven't beaten Alabama. It's been ever since Nick Saban was there for sure, at least. So that's what 14 or 15 years. Then UT Martin at home, they can win that game. Then here's a big game for them on the schedule, and they won this game last year down to upset Kentucky. Kentucky has to travel to Knoxville.
Ah.
So that's a big game on the schedule. They're rivals, bordering states. And Kentucky has an excellent quarterback, Will Levis. Mark Stoops does a terrific job as the coach. They're always sound fundamentally, good defense, usually a tough offensive line. They like to run the football and pound at you and see if you can stop them at the point of attack. Then, Donna, they have to go to Athens, Georgia. That could be that's definitely a difficult matchup for them, but we'll see how they progress through the season. Then they host Missouri and Knoxville, so that's a winnable game for them. And then they go to South Carolina, Columbia. Columbia has a new quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Shane Beamer is the coach in the second season. So, that's a possibility on the road. Then the last game of the year is Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's still in the rebuilding stages. That'll be in Nashville. So that's just a look at Tennessee's schedule. They have an opportunity probably. I think 9-3 is a fair projection for them. But the quarterback must play well. Have to get some defensive stops. Kicking game has to be solid. I want to be low on the turnovers, which the quarterback only had 4 interceptions last year, so that's excellent. It gives his team a chance to win. But that's just a preview of their schedule. Like I said, that Pittsburgh game, they came down last year and beat Tennessee with a pretty high scoring affair, but they had an excellent quarterback, Kenny Pickett, Pittsburgh, one of the top draft choices in the pros. But Tennessee, they're on the rise. But Donna, they can't rest on their laurels. Okay, this year is completely different. Every year it's a new addition of a football team. Personnel, maybe the schemes are changed slightly. They have the same quarterback and the top receiver, Cedric Tillman, who was in Atlanta for the SEC Media Days. But they have to keep total focus and remember that they're a team that is building to try to compete for the SEC Eastern Division. Georgia is the favorite at this point.
Well, AP, every single year, the stars align. The moon shines a different way. Something happens, and there's always that one game where there's a huge upset, and it shocks everybody. Who do you think it might be this year?
That's a good question. I'm thinking, and we're projecting way down the road here, Donna, a lot of games to be played. I'm thinking if Kentucky can be consistent this year, Tennessee upset them in Mississippi State. I think that if they can get to that Georgia game, which is the last home game conference-wise for them in Lexington, that could be a game that everybody is watching. Georgia at Kentucky.
So why do you think that?
Well, because they have an excellent quarterback, and Kentucky can run the football. And if you can run the football, you're keeping all those very good offensive stars for Georgia on the bench. They're watching, or you're at least shortening the game.
Yeah, I think that could be too. I do. But now so many variables can happen that can change the whole outlook of the entire team. Somebody can get hurt. That's so many things can happen.
Donna, that variable, you mentioned that is the four-letter word that no one wants to hear. H-U-R-T. No one wants to hear that word.
Mum's the word. I'll stop that. Especially when it comes to Alabama and Auburn.
Right, correct. Yeah,
I'm a huge Auburn fan, but I'm not one of those. I'm for Auburn, whoever's playing Alabama, because if I see Alabama has the shot, I'd rather Alabama get it.
Yeah, I like to see all the teams in the SEC have a good season. I know that's very difficult. They have to beat each other, but I'd like to see them all have a winning season, and we'd like to see them win all the non-conference games because that improves the strength of schedule when you're considering the teams for the playoffs, and it gives the better bowl matches. And so I'd like to see the SEC do well in the non-conference.
I'm not hearing as much from Clemson as I used to. When we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, the pastor of our church was a huge Clemson fan. And one year, Auburn was just taking a licking, and he would walk up to me after church and say, "What happened to your team?" And his was dominating. I'm telling you, Clemson was everywhere. What's happened to them?
Well, Clemson took a little bit of a retreat last year because they didn't have the quarterback play. Everybody thought the quarterback from California would be very good, and he was average. And so that makes a difference, Donna, when the person handling the ball 99% of the time is not as accurate, doesn't make the proper decisions, doesn't release the ball in a timely manner. So all those things affect the production of the offense. Consequently, your defense is on the field more, so maybe they're getting tested. So Clemson this year is looking to rebound from a less than stellar performance last year. We'll find out. They have another quarterback in the wings, so maybe the supposed star quarterback from California, he's going to be challenged, and I think Dabble will play that other quarterback if things don't turn out well, especially in the first couple of games. But Clemson is a team with talent. We're just going to see how their mindset is, and if they can play better this year. As I said, last year they didn't have that championship season that they like.
Yeah, I haven't been picking on that pastor much in the past couple of years. I like it when they're playing really good. That way I have something I can complain about.
Oh yeah. Last year, down to that Pittsburgh team that defeated Tennessee, they won the ACC. That's how good Pittsburgh was last year.
Well, I know that there are other regions that actually have football teams as well. So let's talk about a couple of them.
I think that the team right now that people always look to outside of the Southeastern Conference, beside Clemson, down, let's say, is Ohio State.
Yeah.
They have the quarterback from California, another California quarterback, and we seem to mention those quite a bit. I mean, we have one at Ole Miss, possibly Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, strong Heisman contender. They have tremendous receivers, Donna. I mean, I would say probably the best tandem or trio of receivers at Ohio State, and good running back and outstanding offensive production. They brought in a new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State. They must get better on that side of the football, because Don, if you can score 40 points, but if you're giving up 41, it doesn't matter. I mean, you've got to play better on that side of the ball. So they want to be a championship team, and Ohio State does have the talent. That you have to get better on defense. So look for Ohio State. They'll be number 2 or 3 in the country, if not 1 by some people. And then I think a surprise team looking to the West, we're going to go to USC, because they have Lincoln Riley, the former Oklahoma coach. He brought along Caleb Williams, who was a star last year, the freshman at Oklahoma. He's from the Washington, D.C. area. And they have a lot of transfers. They have a linebacker from Alabama, Don, as a matter of fact, transferred to USC.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're getting players from everywhere. And I think you can put together a team that can challenge. But we're going to look also at Oklahoma. They have a new coach. He was the defensive coordinator for many years at Clemson, Brent Venables. So Oklahoma, they're probably one of the better teams in the Big 12. You have Baylor, Dave Aranda. He led them to the Big 12 championship, and they beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. So watch out for Baylor as well. Texas, they're trying to get better. Their season last year, I think, was 5-7. They have a new quarterback transferred from Ohio State, Quinn Ewers. They have a Heisman Trophy potential running back, Bijan Robinson. They have a lot of good skill players down in receivers. Tight end transfer from Alabama, Billingsley. Wide receiver Hall transfer from Alabama. They've got to get tougher on defense, Donna, because they won't have a chance. It'll be like a basketball game if they don't improve on that side of the football. Penn State comes down to challenge Auburn. I think they need better quarterback play. Penn State does. Michigan, returning quarterback. I don't know if they have the talent they used to have 20 years ago, Donna. They can recruit players from California and Florida and every once in a while Texas and different parts of the country. They've got to get back to finding people that can be drafted by the NFL. I mean, because that you're competing against Ohio State, and every year they get 8 or 9, 10 people drafted, 11, whatever it may be. So that you have to have that talent, Donna. As we said, a jackass never won the Kentucky Derby, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to get talent. I mean, that's the coach's responsibility. So, but those are some of the teams I feel that will be good. North Carolina State, people are talking about them in the ACC, Donna.
Uh-huh.
So we watch out for the Wolfpack, watch out for the Pack in the ACC. Florida State's trying to get better under Mike Norville. They play LSU the first game of the season in New Orleans, Labor Day weekend. That's on a Sunday night. So that's a game to watch because, as we said, LSU has a new coach, Brian Kelly, came from Notre Dame. So I think those are some of the teams nationally we should watch. I mean, there might be a surprise. Sometime Iowa slips up there down in the Big Ten. They'll have a good year, and if the schedule is right for them, many of their big games at home, they could possibly pop up there. It just depends.
Absolutely. About 30 seconds left in this segment. What are you going to be doing this coming week?
Yeah, we're just going to be getting ready for the season, Donna. We'll be reviewing all the teams and trying to figure out if there's some surprises in the conference.
There's always going to be that.
yeah, always. Yeah. So we're just getting ready for the season, Donna, primarily just checking in with people around the country.
AP, thank you so much for being on the show today, and best of luck on your new show.